Hello to the morning news. First to Venezuela, National Assembly President Diosdado Cabello and Caracas Mayor Jorge Rodriguez presented new evidence of the thwarted coup attempt. The evidence included two alleged recordings of arrested soldiers being interviewed and recounting the details of the plan. They also presented an alleged phone call between opposition party coup members. The recordings backed up government claims that former Mayor Antonio Ledesma had been involved in the plans with the support of the U.S. and British embassies. Campaigning in El Salvador came to a close Wednesday. Voters will head to the polls on March the 1st to elect mayors and representatives to the Legislative Assembly. Electoral laws allow the parties to campaign out to midnight.
The political parties are taking advantage of the last day of campaigning in order to call for the population to vote in favour of their proposals. The FLMN is hoping to counter support from Salvadorians for their social programs that have been a key feature of the leftist government.
We have found a very positive response in favor of the FMLN. There is support. We have the confidence that we should continue supporting and accompanying the president, Salvador Sánchez Serén. There should be a legislative assembly that backs him.
The candidates for the Arena Party held their campaign closing event in Plaza Barrios in the centre of the capital. The program of the right-wing party is called We Can.
Local development is intimately tied to human development, to economic development, to the quality of life of the people who live in communities. Let's not forget that in every city there are rings of poverty, but above all in the capital of the Republic.
The FLMN candidate for mayor in the city of San Salvador, Nayib Bukele, proposed donating funds that would have been the close of the campaign to three institutions: Comandos de Salvamento, the School for the Blind, and to children facing cancer at the Bloom Hospital.
Together with the Secretary General, we have come to the conclusion that we will make a donation of $30,000. $10,000 for each of the institutions, instead of organizing a campaign close event, which would have cost us that amount.
How nice would it be if all the political parties saw the situation the same way, because as you have seen, we provide a service at the national level with different parties wearing different colors.
The close of the campaign period gives 3 days for the population to decide their vote without the publicity campaign of the parties, who constantly are appealing for the vote of the public. Ernesto Alvaros, teleSUR, El Salvador.
A day after riot police in the Mexican state of Guerrero violently repressed protesting teachers, members from their union took to the streets in various cities throughout the country. They declared that their right to protest will not be shut down. Our correspondent Clayton Kahn has more.
Here in the Mexican capital, dissident teachers once again take the streets, this time denouncing a brutal police offensive on Tuesday night in the resort city of Acapulco, Guerrero. A 4,000-strong march of teachers from the state of Guerrero were violently attacked by the state's riot police after they blocked the city's airport. One retired teacher, Claudio Castillo, was killed, dozens injured, and more than 100 detained.
We demand punishment and a clear investigation into what happened to our murdered friend Claudio due to the excessive, brutal, and exaggerated force exercised by public security forces on all three levels of the government.
For over 2 years, the dissident teachers have been fighting against President Enrique Peña Nieto's education reform, calling it a measure to privatize public education and attack on labor rights. In the face of the violent repression, they say they will only radicalize their movement against the reform.
To radicalize for us is not to confront riot police or affect third parties. We can radicalize our actions by implementing pedagogical measures that will undermine the education reform.
Aside from their struggle against the education reform, the education workers in recent months have faced increased police repression for their protests demanding the return alive of the 43 disappeared Ayotzinapa students. Clayton Kahn, teleSUR, Mexico City.
And as the peace talks continue in Havana, a conference on truth and peace was held in Bogota with the participation of former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan and Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos. Our correspondent Natalia Margarita has more on this story.
As the issue of justice will be right at the center of this 33rd round of negotiations, former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan addressed a conference on truth commissions and peace processes, in which he referred to the challenges of pursuing peace and justice.
I can say that we have learned that justice need not be an impediment to peace. It is an essential partner.
President of the International Center for Transitional Justice, David Tolbert, insists that all actors involved in the conflict must assume responsibility in a process of transitional justice.
In the Colombian context, institutions bear responsibility for committing, enabling, or otherwise turning a blind eye to abuses in violation of their responsibilities. This has been a part of the transitional justice process that has been missing.
President Juan Manuel Santos referred to truth-seeking as essential to justice and victims' reparation. He insisted that all victims, including the ones as a result of state violence, should be recognized, and that it is unacceptable that some sectors still deny the existence of paramilitarism and its victims.
It's necessary to recognize all victims of a conflict. Any discussion should start by admitting responsibility for them and knowing that their rights are not negotiable.
The participants at the conference agreed that peace processes must reflect local realities rather than global templates. However, raised questions and challenges that other societies have faced while trying to overcome conflict should contribute to enrich the discussions on justice and peace in Colombia. From Bogotá, Natalia Margarita, teleSUR.
Feminist groups in Honduras protested in front of a Supreme Court after a feminist leader was found guilty of defamation. Here you are, our correspondents report.
Feminist leader Gladys Lanza has been found guilty on the charges of defamation against the public official Juan Carlos Reyes and is facing up to 4 years in prison and being barred from being part of political organizations. However, her defense says that this is not the end of the trial.
The court has already made the announcement. She was declared guilty. Now what is left to do is to decide how many years she will be condemned to prison for the crime of defamation and barred from civil activism. That will be decided by the trials court, but obviously that's not where the process ends. We will appeal the law and appear before the judges of the criminal division.
Feminists from the Visitación Padilla organization demonstrated in front of the Supreme Court after the verdict. The initial charges against Lanza was only defamation, but now the prosecution has also put forward charges of gender crimes against his client, claiming that Lanza is attacking him because he is a man. This would add 2 more years on the possible 4-year sentence.
For the regional feminist movement, this means a criminalization of the defense of women's rights, and that is clear now. They are taking out their clause. Now the prosecution is adding new charges for the crime of discrimination because he is a man. We can see how the laws and institutions that were initially meant to protect minorities are being inverted and used against the most vulnerable people, while the high rates of impunity for crimes continue.
The judge announced that the final verdict, that includes how many years Gladys Lanza will have to go to prison, will be given on March 6. After this date, the feminist leader will have one last opportunity to try to avoid a prison sentence. Meanwhile, the Honduran feminist movement assures that they won't remain silent. Gerardo Torres, teleSUR, Central America.
And turning to world news, in northern Afghanistan, more than 180 people have died in a series of avalanches. Local authorities say the avalanche is just part of a larger humanitarian crisis in the mountainous province of thwarted, which is facing one of its toughest winters in years. Meanwhile, Ukraine is facing a growing currency crisis. Ukraine's currency, the hryvnia, has struggled to regain its value since the exchange rate slumped 7% on Monday. The government has responded with new currency controls amid fears inflation could spiral out of control. The hryvnia's nosedive has led to consumer prices in Kyiv skyrocketing as much as 50% since the beginning of the week. And finally, Australian researchers have unveiled the world's first jet engines made with a 3D printer. The researchers behind the breakthrough say plane engines will revolutionize the way aircraft are constructed by allowing prototype engines to be built faster and cheaper. While prototypes can currently take months to produce, Researchers say they may soon be able to churn out experimental machines in these. These were the news. Have a nice day.